Please welcome Crista Saltzman.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Crista Saltzman, and I'm an acupuncturist in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Oftentimes, people have said to me, "So, how did a nice Italian girl from Philly end up being an acupuncturist?" Well, we'll get to that. I'll tell you about that story. When I was first in college, I was feeling rather ill one day. And I went out, I thought, well, it's just the flu. Went to the doctor. No, it's not the flu. He didn't know what it was. He kept saying to me, "You'll get better, just go home and rest." Weeks and weeks went by. Fevers continued, headaches. It was unbelievable. I have to ask, and I don't know if anybody can tell me, when was it that they first heard of Lyme's disease? Was it 5 years ago, 10, 20? As Greg said, I was diagnosed over 25 years ago. But I had been sick for years before I got my diagnosis. My mom always said, "Boy, you love to be different, and you don't like to miss a thing." But between you and me and the wall, there are a few things I would have liked to have missed. One was malaria, another one was celiac disease, and sometimes I think I would have wanted to miss Lyme disease. There were times in my life when I thought I would have wanted to miss that. But then when I rethink it, you know, it really was a blessing. When they say everything happens for a reason, I really believe that is true. Let me give you a little background. Lyme's disease was first, considered or founded back in the 70s, but no one had heard of it yet. There were about 51 cases in Lyme, Connecticut, of people with a series of symptoms, headaches, arthritic symptoms. Many of them had pain they couldn't explain, paralysis, Bell's palsy. The doctors were stumped. They didn't know what it was. It wasn't until 1982 that a scientist actually identified and named the spirochete that was causing Lyme's disease. However, it took years for that word to get out. I guess it was around the mid to late 80s when doctors were starting to find out about Lyme's disease. Maybe reading it in a journal, hearing at a medical conference. In 1991, the government finally decided it was time to put some money into a pot and begin educating people on Lyme's disease. Up to that point, there really had not been anything done for research, education, no funding at all. And that's where my story kind of falls into place. Around 1984, 1985, I was up in Connecticut. I was visiting some friends. They lived on the Farmington River. They said, "Come on up, we'll have a great time. We'll go tubing down the Farmington." I didn't know any better. I said, "Sure, I'll come up." As we're walking down to get into the river with our tubes under our arms, I see a bunch of kayaks going by. Now these guys are serious. Helmets, body armor, all kinds of stuff. I said, "Who are those guys?" And my friend said, "Oh, that's the Olympic kayak team." I said, "Oh, that's nice." And I hear the rushing water. He said, "Don't worry, it's only a class 3 rapids." Now, some people know. I didn't know. Rapids were, class from 1 to 5. So this is class 3 rapids. These guys are going down with all kinds of protective gear on. And there we are in our bathing suits with our tubes. So we went on down, had a ball, and it was sometime after that I began not feeling well. Went to the doctor, as I said. They thought it was the flu. It didn't get better. I kept going back, and they said, "Well, I think what you have is a fever of unknown origin." I said, "Oh, that's brilliant. Is that really a diagnosis? I mean, what do we do with that?" Has anyone else heard that one before? Fever of unknown origin? Yeah, right? So it went on from there. the fevers, the headaches, the severe fatigue, aches and pains. Sometimes I ached all over, head to toe. I would wake up in the morning feeling like I'd been thrown down a flight of stairs. Then my joints began to swell up, all on the right side of my body. Then the debilitating headaches and migraines, they would start in the back of my head. Right on the left side here, they would come forward, and then my right eye would start to shoot back and forth involuntarily. That's when things really started to get scary. My family doctor had been working with me all along. I should say my second family doctor. The first one, the guy had originally given me the fever of unknown origin diagnosis. He decided that, well, I should probably see a psychiatrist because there was nothing wrong with me. So off I went, but then as I was sitting there in the psychiatrist's office, I said to him, "Does it really make sense to you that I'm here? I have an elbow that had what looked to be a baseball underneath the skin. My right knee was twice the size of my left knee. I had fevers every day, and I had been keeping a journal of the temperatures and how they changed." So I said to him, "Wouldn't I be an awful interesting and powerful person to be able to just cause these large nodules on my joints? Wouldn't that just be something?" And he said, "Yeah, I don't think you belong here." He suggested I go to Johns Hopkins University. So off I went. I went to Johns Hopkins. I went to Penn. I went to Jefferson. I went to Pennsylvania Hospital, where there was God's gift to infectious diseases, or so I was told. None of these learned men in all of these fabulous institutions knew what was wrong with me. In fact, the God's gift to infectious disease doctor took my husband aside and he said, "Take her out, buy her a new dress, take her to dinner, she'll feel better." What? Yeah, that's what I said. So we went home and we tried to think, what will we do next? Where are we going to go for help? So back to my dear family doctor, who never lost faith in me, who was always trying to find a diagnosis. Just about 3 weeks before he was going away to a medical conference, things got really bad. Paralysis on my right side. Sometimes I would get up and my legs would just give out from under me. I'd fall to the floor. I began having heart palpitations. They sent me in for testing and found 2 valves were damaged. All things that I had never had any problems with before. My doctor said he was almost worried to go away to this conference on one hand, but on the other hand he was excited because he was going to take my file with him. He was going to talk to other doctors there and see if he could find out what was wrong. One night, while he was away, it was about 10 o'clock at night, I got a phone call, and it was him. He said, "I want you to go to the hospital tomorrow. They're going to do a blood test." He said, "You wouldn't believe this, but I think I know what's wrong with you." I said, "What?" He said, "I think you have Lyme's disease." I said, "What is that? I've never even heard of it." He said, "Look, I'm telling you, I just listened to a guy in a conference here. He has a bunch of patients up in Connecticut. They have all the same symptoms as you. I think this is what it is." So off I went the next morning to the hospital, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. The nurses, the lab techs, they had never heard of this thing. They were doing a test. They were sending it away to some lab they had never even heard of. But lo and behold, a couple days later, I got a phone call, and it was Lyme, and it was in the most advanced stages. So then I was faced with, what would I do? Would I go through the IV therapy? Would I do it at home? Would I do it in the hospital? I didn't want to go into the hospital, but it was so new they weren't sure they could do it through home therapy. Thankfully, they decided they would try. So at home, nurses would come to the house. They inserted the first long line, or PICC line, as some of you may be familiar with. Unfortunately, a couple days later, I had a red line going up my arm. It was infected. They had to take it out. So every 2 or 3 days, they would come and re-stick me. I've got lots of scars, but I got through it. 30 days of IV Herceptin, and the headache stopped. The involuntary eye motion stopped. The paralysis went away. The numbness, the collapsing. All fabulous. What a blessing. But there was still lots of other stuff going on. I was still feeling so tired, so fatigued. My joints were still twice their normal size. I didn't know what to do, so they sent me back down to Penn, where a group of physicians sat down with me and said, "We're really sorry. We've cured your Lyme disease. But this is all we can do for you. All the things you have now, you will have forever. You will never get better," they told me. They said, "Don't worry, we'll fill out the Social Security disability papers for you." I said, "What? I'm 24 years old." "Oh, well, it'll be okay. You'll get benefits. You'll never be able to work. You should never have children." This was a lot for a 24-year-old. So I kind of filled up a little bit, started to cry. The 2 older doctors walked out of the room, and the 1 young guy stayed behind. Then he said to me, "Do you know where Chinatown is?" I kind of looked at him funny. I said, "Well, I grew up in Philly. I know where Chinatown is." He said to me, "Have you ever heard of acupuncture?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, let me tell you, we can't help you anymore, but I think they can." He said, "Go down to Chinatown, go into one of the little grocery stores and ask, where's the acupuncturist?" So I did that. He also told me before I left the office, if I was to repeat this to his colleagues, he would have to deny it or else he'd get laughed out of Penn. So I kept it a secret, but I did go down to Chinatown. I found an acupuncturist and I began treatment. It was amazing. Within a few treatments, my pain started to subside. The joints, the swelling started to go down. It took a while for the joints to return to their normal and usable state, but they did within a few months. Then they started chipping away at the fatigue, at the fevers, until eventually everything was gone. I was healthy, I was strong, I was working full-time. I have 2 beautiful daughters, one in the audience right now who's about to be married soon, and another one at home. So basically, acupuncture gave me my life back. During my treatment, I asked so many questions, I made my acupuncturist crazy. He said, "Stop asking questions, read some books." I did. But the books gave me more questions. He said, "Okay, go to school." I said, "Go to school? I can't go to China to learn acupuncture." He said, "You don't need to. There's schools here." I had never thought there'd be acupuncture schools here in the U.S., but there were. There were about 20 of them. The closest one was way up in northern New Jersey by Manhattan. It was in Montclair, New Jersey. So I went up, I visited, I loved it. My first day of school was supposed to be the day the 9/11 bombings occurred. Of course, school was canceled. We started a week or 2 later. But it was the best thing that I ever did. When I started school, I had an absolute burning desire to learn and to be able to help other people. I wanted to be able to give other people the chance that I was given to have their life back. I wanted to help other people to take their pain away, to give them a feeling of vim and vigor again. I wanted them to be able to go out and do the things they love to do, to be with their families, to experience life to its fullest. I was really lucky. I did get diagnosed, and I was able to go on with my life. I think a big part of my time when I was sick, I always thought, well, I can work around this. I'll work in the mornings. I felt good in the mornings. I felt horrible in the afternoons. So I worked out with my employer different types of schedules. I think Megan said in her talk, being positive and always thinking about what's good and how you're blessed. That was a big part of my life at that time too. And I did a lot of praying, and I took a very multidisciplinary approach. I saw doctors, I did acupuncture, I prayed, I did shiatsu. So I would say that one of the most important things is being positive, not giving up. Keep searching for the answers, keep searching for what will make you well. And also continue to spread the word and help other people get diagnosed and get well. Thank you.